Washington, D.C., the seat of power of the United States of America. A place where you can make change or get sucked into the vortex of competing agendas. Sister Dalia Mogahed is the director of the DC-based ISPU, an institute that researches demographics about Muslims in the United States.
American Muslims are the youngest faith community in America, meaning our average age is about 25 years younger than the average age of other faith communities.
Wow.
So the other thing that makes us unique is that we have no majority race. So every faith community that we study, Jews, Catholics, Protestants, even non-affiliated Americans, unsurprisingly, the majority of all of these faith groups are white. And the Muslim community doesn't have one group, one race that it makes up its majority. It's about equal percentages, Black, Asian, and actually white. And
Wow.
Arabs are a little bit less, but there's a big difference between Arab and Muslim, and the data is very clear on that. The vast majority of Muslims are not Arab, and not all Arabs are Muslim as well.
Going back to the demographics a little bit, it seems like the Muslim community in America is like a melting pot within a melting pot. How does that affect how we see our identity in this nation that a lot of us are starting to be born in and growing up in?
Yeah, it's interesting. Half of Muslims were born here and half were born outside the United States. So you're right, half of us, I wasn't born here, actually. I was born in Egypt and came when I was young, but half of us are natural born citizens, and the other half were born outside the United States. About 80% of us are citizens, and the other 20% are not. But how does it affect our identity? I do think it's different from everyone. But what we find, overall in our research is that Muslims identify very strongly with their country and with their faith. And that identifying strongly with their faith is actually linked to even stronger national identities, even stronger identifications, even stronger American identities. So the two identities are not in competition. They're actually mutually reinforcing.
While strolling in the National Mall, an extensive green space surrounded by monuments, museums, and government buildings, I discovered an authentic Indonesian food cart and decided to try it.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Mohammed. I'm from Indonesia. We are Indonesian, authentic Indonesian food.
I went with chicken satay, a typical Indonesian street food, and Indonesian jasmine iced tea. Let's give this a try. Bismillah. It's like juicy grilled chicken, probably chicken thighs with some nice peanut sauce on it. Peanut with a little sweet teriyaki flavor as well. It's very good. I actually love jasmine flavor, the smell of jasmine, so this jasmine tea is really good. Tastes like when I usually get jasmine milk boba, just without the milk part. There's no escaping the fact that here in America, we're both American and Muslim. A lot of us were born in this country, a lot of us have been raised in this country, and with that comes our expectations, comes the way we see the world, comes what we're comfortable with, our mannerisms, our culture. And you can't just jump from America to a Muslim country and say, I renounce my Americanness. It's part of us now. And we have to deal with that, and we have to take the good parts of being an American and leave the bad parts. Just like when Islam spread to any new country, whether it was West Africa, whether it was Indonesia, the Muslims there had to take the good parts of their culture and they had to leave the bad parts. And so once we understand that we are American, that's just who we are, and we are Muslim, and that's just who we are, we have to think about how Islam is going to succeed in this country, in this society. As I made my way out of the National Mall area, I serendipitously ran into someone that has been on my mind since I arrived.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see everybody. Just walking along, saw my man Badis, and we'll see you soon, inshallah.
Nestled within the Embassy Row neighborhood of Washington, D.C. is one of the most striking examples of Islamic architecture in the Western Hemisphere. The Islamic Center of Washington was built in 1960, with support from the Turkish government who provided the tiles, the Iranian government that sent the Persian carpets, and the Egyptian government who sent trained calligraphers to make the calligraphy. Today, it mainly serves the ambassadors and diplomats who work around here, but it is open to the public for daily prayers and Jummah. Around the corner from Howard University lies the newest venture of social media influencer Sufyan Bernouch. Sufyan, who goes by Seuss Videos on social media, went viral for his trick shots and basketball skits, being featured on ESPN, Bleacher Report, Overtime, and more.
One shot, you take one shot, and when you first try and you make it, you get something free off the menu.
How many people make it? Is it common or no?
It's very hard to make. He makes it look easy, but yeah, if you come every day, it's a daily thing too. So you come every day and take your daily shot, and make it. The more you practice your wrist, then you get it.
That's why they call it halal wrist.
Yeah, the halal wrist. Yeah.
This is the most important shot in my life. I finally made it after about 17 tries, and then went ahead and ordered the chicken over rice. Halal platter style food has come a long way since the unseasoned white, maybe a little pepper chicken from halal guys. In recent years, we've seen a lot more innovation, a lot more flavor coming into that. Especially with chicken nowadays, look for the red stained chicken, meaning that it has a lot of spices in it. Especially here, it's not necessarily tandoori flavor. It's a little bit, it has the basics: chili powder, ginger, garlic powder, cumin. But I think there might be a Moroccan twist to it because Sufyan is Moroccan and he has a passion for food. But the food here is great, and they're also opening a second location because of how well they're doing here. So if you're ever in DC, check it out. Located in northeast DC is the masjid that has been here the longest, Masjid Muhammad. I met with Brother Abdul Qawi, who was able to tell me a little bit about the history of the masjid.
This is the fourth masjid. It was under Elijah Muhammad back in the day, and it was during the time that we had the Nation of Islam. And they were all called temples except for this one, all right? Mosque number 4. All right, so then this one was the only one that was actually built from the ground up to be a mosque. And it's been here since the building has been here since 1960. but we have 85 years in the city.
Born into mainstream Islam, we have the understanding that Elijah Muhammad was a deviant who advocated beliefs that would take one out of the fold of Islam. However, speaking with Abdul Qawi made me realize, from purely a sociological perspective, what Elijah's contributions were to waking up black people in America from the lies that they had been sold.
We had to be reprogrammed in a sense. You know, before he started his teaching, we were in the mindset that this was our heritage. This is the thing that we were. And even though we have people in our history that stood up and fought against different things, no one actually stood up and explained the psychology of it. Okay, so when he brought out the psychology of how they use the Bible, they use all the figures in the Bible, you know, a Caucasian image that's supposed to have been, you know, God or godly, and everything that the Bible had mention of color or black in there was cursed. So he had to bring all those points out, bring it there, and then make sense out of it. Yeah. The reverse psychology he used on the Caucasians is that he said that the black man was God, all right? And the white man was the devil. Yeah. And so that kind of threw them off a little bit, because wait a minute, you calling me the devil? You know, we've been teaching, you know, that everything that's happening in this country and in the world is because of you black people. But now you calling us the devil and you calling yourself God, and they had to re-examine themselves. You know, he said, yeah, you're the devil, you know, and you do devil, you are the devil and you do devilish things. So
it took someone being bold like him to change the narrative.
Yeah. He stood out and he definitely changed the narrative.
Imam Warith Deen Muhammad is a figure in our American Islamic history that needs more credit. Son of Elijah, he studied Islam from traditional sources and realized the grave errors in his father's preaching. Upon his father's death in 1975, he took over the Nation of Islam and led a transformation of hundreds of thousands of people to traditional Sunni Islam.
We were calling ourselves the Nation of Islam, all right? And he said, that's a small concept. He said, no, this is the universal. He said, Islam is Islam all over the planet. You know, it's all over. So you can't be a nation of Islam. You know, it's bigger than that. He taught us al-Islam proper. He taught al-Islam like it's presented in the revelation of Quran and the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
I asked Abdul Qawi if he thought it was possible to be a proud American and Muslim.
If America lived up to their ideals, America would be beautiful. You can see it too if you look at what's written. It's beautiful, the actions.
How do we as American Muslims reconcile our identity as Americans with the foreign policy of our country?
That's a great question. I think it's how, you know, we reconcile our identity as believers in Islam, even when not all Muslims uphold it perfectly. So I think, you know, I am deeply invested in Islam as my faith. That doesn't mean I defend or agree with every single action that every Muslim does, or even every Muslim majority country that claims to represent Islam does. Yeah. And it's very similar with this country. You know, I can be deeply invested in the American project, but not agree with every decision that the American government makes and takes. And it should be within that American project that I can dissent and I can disagree and I can work really hard to make change. So I really want to emphasize this for anyone who's listening, and just in general, to never be bullied into thinking that you either agree with everything or you're not fully American. That's completely not true. Every single American has the right to be fully American and passionately in disagreement with the policies of the American government.
What are your predictions for the future of the Muslim community in America?
I think there's sort of like two scenarios, or at least two scenarios. One is the less positive one, or the less optimistic one. I can start with that. What I do see trends in the Muslim life. I see trends of just Muslims being no different than anyone else, meaning we're as polarized as the rest of the country. We are divided in a lot of ways on racial, lines, kind of like the rest of the country. We're so integrated. So, this word. We're a little too integrated. We're no different at all. And so when you look at the data on almost anything, Muslims look like the general public. Interestingly, they look more like the general public than some Christian groups. So it's like white evangelicals are distinct. Muslims are just like the general public on a number of things. And it's like, so who's not integrating? But what does that mean? It's like we are so integrated that we've lost any distinction in the way we think about things. And that is a huge loss to the country, that we don't come in with anything unique to offer, in terms of our paradigm. And so if we continue down that route, that's a huge loss. And that's one scenario, in terms of the future. A more optimistic scenario is that, yes, we will always be diverse within our community, but that we can offer something different, unique, solutions to problems that are rooted in our tradition, where we're offering something of value that may not have been apparent, rather than just being consumers of ideas.
Yeah. America will always be a country built by refugees and immigrants. From the earliest pilgrims who left persecution in England to the recent Afghani immigrants who are leaving turmoil in Afghanistan, this country is built by the people who come here. This isn't the land of the French or the land of the Saudis. This is America. It's an ongoing experiment in multiculturalism. Don't let anybody tell you this land belongs to a certain demographic or a certain type of person or a certain religion. This land belongs to all of us.